So,
May I know what questions there will be?
it just will be a conversation.
I'm just afraid that I won't get into trouble because of this when I get exchanged and return to Russia.
Are you afraid of FSS?
Yes.
Aren't you scared of being a prisoner?
Scared.
Is it scary to be in captivity?
Yes.
Why are you scared?
Don't even know, there's just some uncertainty.
What uncertainty?
I don't know. I understand you. Fine.
No, if you don't want to, we can't communicate at all.
No. Let's talk already.
I'm just wondering, are you afraid to return to your homeland? Are you Ukrainian or Russian?
By citizenship, I'm Ukrainian, but I received a passport of the Russian Federation
What for?
in January. Those who accepted the passport could find an official job. And then, after some time, you would be possible to leave for another city.
What, is it impossible to do without a passport?
Not that I know of. They say that you can only get an official job with a passport.
Please introduce yourself.
My last name, I'm 48 years old. I'm from the city of Mariupol.
State your date of birth.
February 13, 1975.
What is the truth? Just tell me your truth. I'm not going to ask you any leading questions. Tell me your real story first, and then we'll discuss some of the interesting aspects of it.
Fine. When the active phase of the war began,
Start earlier. Tell us about yourself. What were you? Where did you work? Did you have a family?
fine. I was born in the city of Mariupol and lived and worked there all the time. I have no family. I was unfortunately married. We were in a civil marriage. Then 2 years ago, she and I separated. I've been single lately. Most of the time I work as a construction worker on construction sites.
Were you in the city when it was shelled by artillery in 2014?
Yes, I was in the city. When they fired, it was the Vostochny microdistrict that was shelled.
Yes. Who fired?
Well, the shooting came from the direction of Novoazovsk. That is the territory of DPR.
Yeah. How many were killed then?
I don't remember the exact number. There were not only killed, but also wounded.
What did these people do wrong? Why were they fired at?
There were civilians. They did absolutely nothing wrong to anyone. They just lived and worked.
Lived and worked. Lived and worked. Okay, let's move on to what has been the mood of the residents of Mariupol since 2014.
Mariupol was in a different mood.
I understand this, so tell me about it.
Yes, there were people who didn't like what happened. That the fact that Donetsk and Lugansk separated, DPR and LPR. There were people who supported it, there were people who didn't care about the politics. Like this, people communicated and lived with each other, because it happened that even one family there were disagreements.
Whose side were you on?
I wasn't interested in politics.
Do you care?
Well, how? No, I just worked, lived. I did not lead any active lifestyle politically.
In short, I just want to understand for myself. Are you Ukrainian, or are you, to use an adjective, Russian?
I
I'm not talking about documents.
I understand you. Don't get me wrong. I'm a citizen of Ukraine. But I have parents, mom and dad, they are from Russia. They once came to Mariupol, I was born there. And I have many relatives who live in Russia. I didn't divide people.
How old are you now?
I'm 48 years old.
48 years old.
Yes,
Were you born
I
in
will
Mariupol?
turn 49. Yes.
What kind of relatives do you have in Russia?
There are only cousins.
Therefore, everything you tell me is a complete nonsense. I also have such relative there, unfortunately. Now about the important stuff. What happened on February 24th last year? How did it happen? Where were you at that moment? What were you doing?
On February 24, I was at home.
Mm-hmm.
I went shopping in the city and I saw the excitement. People went to the store, there were long lines. Everyone began to stock up on provisions. We stocked up on groceries. Withdrew money from ATMs. On the street I found out that that there was an invasion.
Yes. Unlike Russians, he calls everything by its proper name. Is this SMO or war?
What?
Is this SMO or war?
Well, basically it's war.
He calls everything by its proper name. There has been an invasion. And what happened next?
Further, then people bought food for several days so that they would have supplies. Then, a few days later, somewhere in late February or early March, the Russian army approached Mariupol, and the siege of Mariupol began.
When was the city completely captured?
Completely captured? Again, I can't say for sure because I haven't really left my village, my yard. I don't know, I think it's probably been a couple of weeks.
A couple of weeks.
I guess so.
Was the city bombed?
Yes, the city was bombed. The work of an artillery piece could be heard. And later, when the situation in Mariupol became better, when it was possible to go out, I saw houses in the city that had been bombed. Most likely by aircraft.
When was this?
It already happened. It was in May or April.
This is after Azov surrendered.
Well, it was probably even a little earlier, because the soldiers still held the Azovstal plant, and it was already possible to move around the city. There were no more fights in the city.
Already there were Russians
Yes.
everywhere. Why didn't you come to the city's defense?
I didn't want to take a weapon at all. I don't know why this is so.
So is it normal for your neighbors to kill you?
No, this is certainly not normal.
Was your house searched?
Yes, they searched me.
How many times?
Twice or thrice.
Have the Russians come?
Yes, it's called cleaning up.
Do a cleanup. Was it pleasant?
No, it's unpleasant.
Why? What was taken from you?
No, they didn't take anything from me. They just checked my documents. They inspected the house. They checked to see if there was anyone outside.
Did many people evacuate?
At what point?
Well, are there many residents left on your street?
Well, it is on my street that more than half of the residents remained after all.
Yes. What did they tell you? What were you talking about with each other?
But we've just been talking like this for a long time. Talked about when it would all end and helped each other with groceries.
Was there a shortage of groceries?
But some had less groceries, some started to run out faster.
Why didn't the occupiers give out food?
After a while, they began to give humanitarian aid. Once a month, they distributed provisions, a food package.
Once a month?
Well, yes, once a month. We made lists.
What did they give you for a month?
There were several kilograms of cereals, tea, sugar, canned fish, and meat. Well, beside this, they gave household chemicals.
Show
soap.
the size of this package.
There was a paper box, something like this box.
Were you starving?
Well, it wasn't enough.
This is not enough.
This is not enough. Yes. This was enough for maybe a week or a week and a half.
Absolutely right. It's just... Why did they starve you? They are savers and liberators.
Maybe there will be enough food for everyone. Well, there was no work there after that.
Let's hold off on this for now. How did you live for 6 months without light and water?
Life was very hard. Life was hard.
Life was hard. Tell us. Why did the soldiers of the Azov regiment defend, but you didn't want to? How long did they end up under siege?
They... In general, I only got out of the siege on May 10th. They stayed on the territory of the plant for a long time. The plant was fired up on...
Around the clock.
Yeah. Throwing bombs from airplanes, I couldn't have survived those conditions. They lasted a very long time, until May 10.
There were also civilians there. Do you know this?
At the factory?
Yes.
So there... a certain number of people, workers, walked around and maintained the continuous operation of the plant. Production was supported, so there was a certain number of civilians there.
Aren't you ashamed?
Ashamed.
Why are you ashamed?
I was holed up at home for hiding from shells.
What did the local people say? Were you happy that the Russians came and destroyed the city?
Many were unhappy because they were left without work. The city had two metallurgical plants and a machine building plant, and everyone in the family had at least one person who had a job there. After this, factories were destroyed. People were left without work. Many were forced to work in construction, although they did not have such a specialty.
Were there those who were pleased? At least one. By the way, a really cool question. Was anyone among your acquaintances or friends pleased with the arrival of the Russians? I'm not talking about Russians who came there to work, I'm talking about the local population.
No one spoke about it so openly. But I think that there were also those who were pleased with the arrival of the Russians.
The one who was nobody but became someone significant.
Maybe.
But the majority, okay, let's do it another way. If you take 100 people you know, how many of them is percentage ratio supported the ongoing occupation?
Well, somehow it wasn't customary for us to talk about it. I think less than half of them were supportive. Probably some were like this. Many were embittered that they had lost loved ones, that their homes had been destroyed, that they had lost their jobs. Therefore, many were unhappy.
But are there more of them than those who were satisfied?
I think it's more.
Of course more. The city was completely destroyed and rather to the ground. In any case, there were bombed cars, apartments, besides there was looting, right?
Yes, there was looting. The houses of people who were forced to leave their homes were plundered.
Were Russian soldiers looting? I know the answer to this question.
But I have heard of several such cases.
Tell me, what you heard?
I don't know these people personally. There are acquaintances of acquaintances. They were weaned from home. They either needed to take the child to a doctor or get humanitarian aid. So, and on this day, there was a cleanup in this area. There was a cleanup. And they were not at home. The soldiers simply opened the door and broke it. Of course, strangers and neighbors were not allowed in at that moment. Then they left. When the owners of the house returned, they discovered that some things were missing. Their phone disappeared. They said that they had some money and it disappeared.
This is essentially an ordinary story. Yes, the Russians are looters in Mariupol and rob it around the clock. He's just afraid to say it, right? They simply kicked out all the residents, entered to the house, and robbed. They took whatever they liked. They stole cars to drive. Am I telling the truth?
There were cases when cars were stolen.
Yes, and then if you wanted to return the car, what should you do? Bring ransom. Hundreds of hours of such conversation about Mariupol, about what is happening there with their damned Russians world, have been recorded. I don't publish them because we are not allowed to publish them yet. But he just wants to say it openly, that a Russian soldier has the right to do whatever he wants. He can go whatever he wants. Take what he wants. Am I telling the truth?
Yes. They took the cars and said that they were supposedly for the needs of the army.
They have permission to do whatever they want. Where did the people go? What versions did you have there?
Well, there were no such cases on my street.
What the rape?
I haven't heard about this.
Well, you didn't hear, that means you didn't hear. Russian soldiers are bastards. They loot, steal, take away whatever they want, whenever they want. Moreover, most often they are drunk. Am I telling the truth now too?
Yes, there was drunkenness.
They drink all the time. And then with the machine gun at the ready, the rapes begin. The robbery begins. There is no punishment for them for this because the Russian command encouraged this. In attempts to complain somewhere, what do they lead to?
Better not to complain.
What?
It's better not to complain, there will be problems.
What happened in the spring?
In the spring, there was more work, but wage delays began. Not everywhere. Many companies began not paying or delaying wages.
Were the Russian paid?
Well, the ones I worked with, they were getting their paychecks late too.
What happened?
Well, I don't know. Maybe it's all because of the greed of the directors of these companies. Maybe greed. Maybe this is probably the main reason here. One company didn't pay me. I went to another and they didn't pay me there either.
You worked for months, they told you that they won't pay you back?
Well, yes, it's good that there was an agreement that an advance would be given every 2 weeks, when they paid once a week. But in reality, this was not the case. Here, and in the months of June...
Hold on, I remembered an important moment. They were building some new neighborhood of new houses.
Yes.
How many houses were built there?
The fact is that there were several similar areas there. At the exit from the city on Kuprin Street, a district was being built. But probably 8 houses were built there. Maybe more, I didn't seem to be
Prefab
following.
houses?
Yes, these were prefabricated structures. 5 and 9-story buildings.
Do they have many apartments there?
Well, you can count. There are 3 or 4 entrances in a 5-story building. Probably 100 apartments in the building.
In short, not enough. How many houses did they destroy? How many did they build?
In the spring of this year, houses were built in different places. In the spring, maybe 20 or even more houses in general were built.
2,000 apartments, roughly speaking. How many houses were destroyed?
Well, I think more than half of all houses were destroyed. 70 or 60%.
That is, several thousand were destroyed, but 20 were built, right?
Yes.
Russian world. Good Russian world.
There is nothing good about this.
Who lived in these new houses?
Well, in these living houses, at first they began to give apartments to employees of the Ministry of the Emergency Situations, medical workers, but to people who held some kind of government positions, civil servants. Then they began to give apartments to those who were left completely homeless, whose apartments were destroyed or burned.
Were the houses high quality or bad quality?
Well, communications were installed in the houses there. People say that there are ordinary house, thin walls and poor sound insulation. And so the apartments were ready, one might say.
This construction was done in order to show in Russian channels. If you show it from the right angle, from the right perspective, it may seem that an entire micro-district is being built. Also, in fact, there may be 6 houses there. Am I saying this correctly?
Well, the square itself was large. Children's playgrounds were still being
It's
built
clear.
in the courtyards.
Putin came?
Yes,
When?
Putin came. It was, it seems, in the spring of this year. We didn't even know that Putin was coming. He arrived in the evening. Most of us only learn about it from the news.
What did they say? Was it Putin or his double?
They said it was Putin. That's what they said. He arrived, it was later shown on the news. He stole a car from one of these new areas. Then he visited several more objects in the city. And then he left. Well, it turns out he spent several hours.
Do I understand correctly that around May of this year you began to starving again?
Well, not exactly starving, but there was no extra money to afford anything extra. All the money was spent on food. Mainly on food.
When did you receive your Russian passport?
I received it in early January of this year.
Were you forced to do this?
No, they didn't force me. I received it voluntarily.
Could you not have received it?
Yes, I might not have received it.
Tell me, what is the difference between not having or having a Russian passport?
Well, with a Russian passport, it was possible to find a good official job. It was possible to get a job. At first, the work was unofficial, no one looked at the passport. Then they began to hire people only if they had a Russian passport. Afterwards, if you had a Russian passport, you could leave Mariupol and go somewhere to another city or region.
Is it possible to live without a passport?
Without a passport, well, maybe, perhaps it would be possible. Of course, there would be checks and the like. In general, a Russian passport gave more bonuses and benefits.
I know that certain conditions were created in the absence of Russian passport. It was impossible to leave, it was impossible to get a job, and most likely it would not be possible to go to the hospital.
It would be possible to go to the hospital. It would be possible, but of course in the near future people would be hired everywhere only with a Russian passport.
Conditions are created in which you are essentially forced. You have a voluntary choice, but without this passport, this document that no one in the whole world needs, you will have difficulties. This forces people to get it. Am I right?
I think that was the plan, because there were not so few people there who wanted to get a Russian passport. There were even queues.
Well, because... could you pass through the checkpoint without a passport?
Without a passport, well, I didn't live anywhere. Those who had a Ukrainian passport were checked for a long time.
They searched, took things and took phone. This is something he doesn't want to talk about and won't, right?
With a Russian passport, it was possible to leave without any problems and pass the checkpoint.
What about without a passport?
But without a passport, it was problematic. They searched for a long time.
What I was talking about. Where you call it to join the army? Did they give you any call-up papers?
No papers were given, period, but messages arrived on the phone. The message from the Ministry of Defense, they invited me to join the army. They offered money.
What amount?
They promised 204,000 rubles a month.
Question. When it all started, why didn't you leave Mariupol? What did you expect?
I didn't leave Mariupol because I was used to living there. I have a house, life there. Again, I didn't want to leave the house because it would be robbed there. Also, my home was simple. I did not have any wells, but beside that, I had nothing.
Can I confirm from your words that all empty houses and apartments was empty have been looted?
I think not all of them. Some were looked after by neighbors. Well, most, yes.
Russian world. Beasts. It doesn't work out of them, that's good. But conditions are being created in which people are starving when there is no work. Because of the last 3 months you have been deceived 4 times, am I right? When people are essentially given a choice between going and robbing somewhere, you have thought about that, haven't you?
I worked honestly all my life. I would not be able to rob and plunder.
Did you work honestly?
Well, I made my living by working.
Is killing for money a private job?
I
asked a specific question.
No, this is not an honest
Then
job.
why are you telling me about honest work?
I mean,
The Russian world shortchanged you. Forced you to pick up a machine gun. And after that you went with the machine gun to kill your former, thanks God, fellow countrymen. Honest work.
I'm very sorry about this.
I don't care, and neither do the viewers who will watch this. Write in the comments, what do you think should be done with such people, traitors? Literally. Are you a traitor?
Yes,
Certainly. Usually when I asked a Russian if he was an occupier, there were many options, but not occupier. And this is a traitor in its purest form. In its purest form, I think that you will receive a criminal sentence and will serve it. This is about 99.9%. Russia creates conditions under which there is no choice. First, in any case, you need to get a passport, because without this document you're nothing. And then they will leave you without money and you will have an option, either go rob, steal, or go to fight. That's why. Tell me about your last day as part of the army invaded us. Yes, army that invaded us.
after I was at our location. A week later, we were sent to Storm. They gave us a ride on some kind of bus that had been shot up.
When was this? What date?
It was August 1st.
August 1st. How many people did you bring?
There were probably 10 of us on the bus. The rest somehow got there their own way. They brought us, and then we walked another 6 kilometers through the plantations.
These 10 people.
Yes, but it was already late in the evening.
August 1st.
August 1st, yes. Then when we had already gathered, other people came up to us. About 15 people from other companies, or I don't even know where. We slept in the plants. In the morning, around 4, the beginning of 5 in the morning, we were divided into small groups. There are 4 people each, and each group was told where to go. There were 3 people in the group I was in. We were directed and told to go to the next plantation. It was perpendicular to this one. It was about 700 meters away from us. We were told not to retreat back, not to go back, just forward. Only the wounded can return back.
What did they say about the captivity?
About captivity, they say that it was better not to surrender. What a cruel attitude there. Here, well, we went along the plantation. There was a field and grass nearby. Upon landing, we were afraid to go because we thought that there might be a mine there, that there could be mines or something else there, and we walked along the landing. Then, after walking some distance, we finally turned into a landing. The Serb from our group lagged behind us at first. After a while, he was no longer visible. We were left alone.
Well, where did he go?
We called out. He was silent. Maybe he was just tired and stopped coming with us. Here and then, when we were nearing the end of the landing, there was tall grass. We heard the drone buzzing. We lay down in this grass and hide. I don't know how much time has passed, maybe 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes. Then we heard mortar explosions behind us. Ukrainian mortars started to working. And we didn't know what to do, what was ahead, where the mortars were, where the Ukrainian soldiers were, where ours were.
Yours?
I mean Russian, other groups. But they told me where they would go. Where
are occupiers? Am I right?
Yes, we wanted to decide to understand the situation. Then, after some time, we heard footsteps and noise, and someone was walking. This comrade we were with shouted, "Ours, ours." They answered in Russian, "Who are yours?" Password. What they said in Russian misled us. We said the password and they opened fire on us. They threw a grenade at us. I received a serious wound, a bullet wound, and it turns out also received a shrapnel wound from a grenade. I began to lose consciousness. That's how I ended up in captivity.
You found yourself captured. And your partner?
My partner was also wounded. He was wounded in the arm, and we were captured together with him.
He is also a prisoner.
Yes.